Couple adopts 19-year-old boy. Later, husband wakes up at night to find wife missing. Just a few months after the kid's adoption, he noticed some things that rubbed him off the wrong way. His wife was no longer spending any time with him. She seemed to enjoy herself more around the adopted boy. For some time, he brushed it off. He didn't want to have any negative or crazy thoughts about it, but eventually he ended up finding out the uncomfortable truth. It was Ray who suggested to Layla that they adopted a 19-year-old boy. After all, he had been an orphan himself, and he sympathized with anyone who was going through the same thing as he did when he was a kid. The kid Trevor seemed to be the son they had always wished to have. He got along beautifully with the couple, but after some time, things took a wild turn. When they decided to adopt Trevor, Ray and Layla Lowry had been married for 2 years. When they first met, Ray was 45 and Layla was 38. It was love at first sight. For Ray, one of his life goals was raising a kid. He had always wanted to have a family in the company of the woman he loved unconditionally. Little did he know that the consequences of this choice wouldn't be easy to deal with. After dating for 1 year, Layla and Ray got married. The two were absolutely in love with each other, and they couldn't wait to take the next step in their relationship. They got rid of their bachelor flats and bought a big, nice house in the suburbs together. But soon their shared dreams would go down in shambles. Ray and Layla tried for months. However, they didn't seem to be able to conceive a child. After 1 year, they decided to visit a doctor, and that's when they found out the issue. After some tests, the doctor told the couple that Ray had a problem in his reproductive system. They would never be able to conceive a kid. But they didn't give up. They started looking for other options. Ray and Layla started looking into adoption agencies as soon as they got home. They spent some days discussing the different options and eventually made a decision. For Ray, the decision to adopt a kid had a deeper meaning. He spent his first years in an orphanage until he was adopted by lovely foster parents. In a way, adopting a kid himself would be like thanking the universe for his great childhood. Ray and Layla chose one of the most reputable adoption agencies in the area. They spent days talking to one of their agents until finally they met Trevor. The 19-year-old boy was one of the kids who lived in the adoption center that Ray and Layla visited. Right from the start, the couple got along with him. In a matter of days, they had made a decision. They were going to adopt him. Even though adult adoptions are not as usual as normal ones, there are still some people who partake in them. Ray and Layla adopted the kid without any second thoughts. The arrangements required by the adoption process took a few months, but soon, Trevor was living with Linda and Ray as their new son. And that's when the problem started. Just a few months after Trevor stepped into their lives, Ray started noticing some strange things, the cause of which he couldn't quite put his finger on. For one, his wife seemed to be less interested in him. She got distant and even indifferent. It was almost like he didn't even exist. She didn't give him any attention at all. But that wasn't the end of it. It got even worse. As Ray soon found out, Layla was spending a lot of time with Trevor. She was always around the kid, just hanging out and talking or watching movies with him. At first, he tried to brush it off. He thought Layla was just enjoying her new, although rather unconventional motherhood. But after a while, he started fearing the worst. Months went by with Ray giving his wife the benefit of the doubt. He knew she loved him and their son and wouldn't ever do anything to jeopardize what they were building. But slowly and slowly, more signs began surfacing, seemingly screaming at him to open his eyes. By the time Ray would listen to them, it would be too late. Layla was spending more time with Trevor than usual. He drove her to her errands and work, took her to the bookstore, and even bought her gifts. Ray brushed all these things aside because Trevor would do some of these things to him too. But one night would change everything between him, Trevor, and Layla. It was a freezing, snowy Thursday night when Ray showed up at his home. He was supposed to fly out of town for a business meeting when his flight got canceled at the last minute because of bad weather. Looking to surprise his family, he took a cab back home and snuck into the house through the back door. It was then that he saw it. Ray found his wife and son in an uncompromising situation. Infuriated, he did the only thing he could. Ray asked Trevor to leave and hurried upstairs to cool off. The night would be very slow after that, and although Layla would join him in bed later that night, Ray would wake up to find her gone in the morning. But why would she do such a thing? Ray found a note Layla had left for him. It informed him that she'd been unhappy and depressed for a while and didn't know how to tell him. She'd not even known her attraction to Trevor until it was too late and was very sorry for what she'd done. Was he too concerned about starting a family that he'd forgotten about how his wife was doing? Ray and Layla retracted Trevor's adoption and divorced soon after. Although Ray still couldn't understand how everything went wrong, He wished Layla and Trevor the best in life.